The tech bros are trying to take away your humanity, but you're not a machine. Let's talk about what it means to live like a human in this high-tech world. This is Analogish, and I'm your host, Becky Mollenkamp. I'm so excited to talk to my friend Jordan Maney. We've known each other for years now. I think you're amazing. I've had you on other podcasts of mine. I just love having conversations with you. So anytime I can, I want to do that. You are a rest and joy coach, but I will let you tell the people what that means and what you do. So Jordan, tell everyone who you are.
Hi, y'all. I am a radical joy coach. I help people use rest as a space to experiment with things that are joyful for them while they transition through something that might be hard, usually like post burnout, post some big thing that happened that may have imploded in their life and they want to transition into something different that's kind to them and full of joy and rest. So I really love being here. I'm so grateful to talk to you, Becky, and we're gonna have a good time.
Of course we are. It's joy. We have to. We're talking about joy. It needs to be joyous. You mentioned about integrating joy into your life and
Mm,
burnout being a reason that people often need that. The reason so many of us are feeling that tension between
mhm,
our digital and our real life footprints is because many of us have gotten to a place of burnout and overwhelm and exhaustion, and we're not getting enough rest. We're not finding enough joy. Maybe social media promised us it would bring us joy and it hasn't.
mm,
I'm wondering for you, I think both of us are old enough to at least remember some flavor of life pre-internet. And
mhm.
I'm curious what you've discovered in your work with people and in your research and what you know about how tech has changed our relationship as a species, as humans, to
Yeah.
things like rest and joy.
Oh, that's such a good question. So I remember, I'm so glad high school was like Facebook. Facebook was getting really popular, and I'm
I'm so
so
much older
glad.
than you, Jordan.
You're fine. I am
I
so
know I'm
grateful.
fine.
I'm so grateful that high school, I was a nerd and my mom was like, "Girl, you are not getting Facebook. I don't know what that is." And I tried to like sneak and get one my senior year, but it was like something that you did. I think social media used to be an event. It used to be something that you would go to or engage in at a certain time, maybe after school, maybe during school or something. But then it went from like being an event to being like a constant thing that we did. And I think that's where a lot of this tension shows up because it doesn't need to be. And I think a lot of us, particularly a lot of us who are like online business owners, are really coming to terms with, the model of like constantly being on, constantly launching, constantly being engaged, constantly like that constant feeling is just not sustainable.
Yeah, it's
It's not,
exhausting.
it's exhausting. And because our feeds in each platform are like tailored to the things we like watch or click on, right? We're still getting exposed to a bunch of stuff we don't want to see. And especially right now with so much like war, conflict, fascism, we're seeing things where it's like a story from the dodo about a cute dog getting adopted or rescued or something. And then the next the next thing in our feed is like war. And then the next thing in our feed is like someone having a bad medical event. Like the fluctuation, I think, is just like too much. So I would say, I think what's most interesting to me, at least, I was just talking to a former client yesterday, is how we have gone from like shifting social media to this event into this thing that we really kind of depend on. Like, open up Instagram or YouTube, and it's like, I want to see something funny. I want to see something to change my mood. And I don't think it's bad to do that as an event, right? But when we become kind of dependent on it, like that becomes our default, that's
Yeah.
when I think we kind of have to look at our relationship to these things a little deeper.
Yeah. Well, and I'm old enough, so I'm even thinking beyond social media, but that too,
Mhm.
to remember a life pre-tech almost, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm old enough that I remember, and we had television and we had
Mm,
radio, but the invention of the internet and first, I mean, social media came even later in the internet revolution. First, there
yeah.
was blogs and, and AOL chat rooms and, different spaces that were starting to bring that attention to us. And it was before smartphones where not only did, like, I think that event that you're talking about, it used to be you had to go to your computer, you had to
Mhm.
dial it up and listen to the before would everything
Mhm.
get there, right? It was a thing to go get online and to read a blog or to get into your AOL chat room or whatever it might be. Then those
Yeah.
smartphones came along and now you have the internet in your pocket. So wherever you can't escape it or you
Yeah.
can, but it feels challenging too because it feels like we're always like you talk about being on, it also feels like we're always expected to be available.
Mhm.
Right? And when you feel that way, whether you're a business owner or just a mom, not just a
Mhm.
mom, but a mom who has
Yeah.
kids and that expectation. Because when I was a kid, I couldn't get a hold of my mom. Like I had to call her workplace on a hard line, and that was a no, right? Like it
Mhm.
was, you better not be calling me unless the house is on fire. Like that was
Pretty
the
much.
what we were told, right? You couldn't get a hold of people unless you walked over to your friend's house and knocked on the door. And now it's sort of like you're expected to always be available, always know what's happening, the latest news, all the things. I mean, what does that do to our nervous systems?
Sometimes I'll have conversations with my parents, and I will have to, like, check myself, or my sister will check me, when I'm doing too much, like, "How did you not know that?" Blah, 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 because 'cause they're not constantly online, right? And this kinda, like, feeling like we have to constantly be fielding things is wild, because I do remember when it was the family computer and you had to, like, wait for someone to get off the phone so that you could get online and you could, like, I don't know, play solitaire or get on Microsoft Encarta or something, like, to look up random things for a school project, and I think, again, just that idea of we used to be untethered to a lot of things, and I think this constant connection makes us feel like we have to be constantly available, and I hate to take advice from the Germans, but one thing that they do come August is I'm gone for the month. Like, if you need
Europeans are
me
great about that. Europeans are really good about taking
so g
summers.
so good about taking those breaks. I wish that was something particularly in America we practice, and I feel like that connection to our phones is tethered also to this idea of, like, constant availability, and especially, like, what does that look like when we need people to constantly be emotionally available, physically available? It's just too much, and it's really not sustainable, so I I definitely think that there's something there around like how do we renegotiate our relationships to our phones, renegotiate our relationships to being online. I really wish there was a way where we could like I know that they have like a Google Home has like the little Nest with the like it's like a tablet basically, but I really wish there was a way to just like dock your phone and like it's at the house and like you get your messages when you come back home or whatever. Or
It's
like we
called an
go back
answering machine. We used to have those in
right.
the
We
80s.
need we need to bring those we need to bring pagers and answering machines back because I feel like there's something kind of special about listening to the voicemails and like, okay, I'm standing here now, so I'm just gonna call everybody or like hit everybody back. But yeah, I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah, well, I don't want okay. So I also want to be careful with this podcast to not move it into just a place of nostalgia because it's easy to look back
Fair.
and say, "Oh, those were the easier times." And that may be true to some degree, and we can't change the reality at which we live
Mhm.
in, right? We live in a very high-tech digital world.
Yeah.
We're all surrounded by it. I mean, you even just mentioned Google Nest. Like how many of us have smart home devices? Our cars
Mhm.
have gotten smart. Almost every car now has a computer screen in it. Like it's everywhere, and we're not just gonna escape it by talking about how it was easier at another time.
Yeah.
So, like, yes, and let's balance that, and I'm the one who brought it up is taking us down that way, because
You're
mostly to
fine.
point out that I do think I don't know that it's made us healthier, in that I
Mhm.
feel like we are sleeping less, we are more
Mhm.
stressed, people are on
Yes.
more medications for stress, right? I don't know that most of us would, on the whole, would say it has brought us more joy. All
Mhm.
that said, we exist inside the system. So before I move into like how do we exist inside the system, I am curious, are there ways that tech does play into your rest practice or your joy practice? Do you use
Ooh.
any tech tools in your rest practice? Like I know I do. I have a dashboard where I do every day check in to monitor how much sleep did I get? Was it
I love
quality
this.
sleep? I check how much water I'm drinking. I track my gratitude. I'm using a technology tool for that. It's once a day, so there's boundaries around it, but it allows me to be able to see data over time and start to notice
Mhm.
trends and things that are working. So that's one way that I am incorporating
Yeah.
tech in a way that feels really good. So I'm curious if it's part of any of your practices.
Well, that's such a good question. I definitely think that I don't think tech is bad. I think our behaviors around tech have not developed as quickly as the tech has, right? And so, yeah, I mean, like I use my little Google Home speaker to make sure that, I hear music when I wake up and that like gently helps me wake up. Or I have like a wind down playlist that plays that like is a cue that like, hey, we're getting ready to go to sleep. Like we need to actually go to sleep. So those things definitely help. And then also using like my notes app when I have things that I like want to update. And I don't know, this is like a particular point of joy for me. Google Photos has this like scanner for older pictures. We have so many like around early 1900 like photos of family, like my dad's side of the family. That's just so precious to me, and I'm always trying to like take as many pictures of them as I can. So that's like a little point of joy. So it's like there are a lot of ways to use our time timer is another one, especially if you are neurodivergent. That's really helpful to like get tasks and stuff done. So I definitely think that I don't think the tech is inherently bad. I'm not saying like we all need to go back in the woods and eat, roots and berries, but I do want people to be able to like renegotiate their relationships to this if there are behaviors that are impacting their sleep, impacting their mental outlook on things, keeping them from like engaging with like their friends and like those types of things.
I think a key word you said there is relationship. And earlier when we were talking about that always needing to be available,
Mm.
this you were talking about a relationship between two people that, were in love. It's okay. You can just mute yourself while he does it. If we were talking about two people who were in love and that was their relationship where they had to be constantly available to each other, we would call that codependency and it would be considered unhealthy. And so I think for us to examine our relationship with technology and the balance of on and offline living, what we're asking is exactly what you said of like, how do you create a healthy relationship? You're going to have to engage with technology in your life, but how do you make sure your relationship is healthy? So when you think about your relationship with technology, what do you consider healthy for you? And I'm sure it's different for every person, but like for you, what feels healthy?
For me, I'm gonna use like a teeny, teeny little story. I think it was last year around February, March, and my phone, I didn't know that this was a thing. Like your battery can swell. And so like you'll take it off. If you put it on the charger and like take it off and it immediately like drops to like 10% or zero, your battery's swollen, you need a new phone. All of that to say, I ended up being without a phone for like 4 days, and you would have thought this was a Ken Burns documentary, the way that I was, like, sending missives to people about, like, "I'll be back soon, it's not that" like, I really was, like it kind of felt like I've never been through, like, a drug withdrawal before, but it felt like I was, like, akin to that, where I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god, like, who am I without my phone? I feel naked, I feel like I'm out in the cold or something." But it was also very funny because there's so many emails in my inbox that I was like, "How did I miss this? How the hell did I miss this? How did I miss this?" So I was, like, paying attention in other ways, but I also got the best sleep I've ever had in my life. And just even though it was 4 days, it felt like 2 weeks, and I remember saying to myself when my new phone came through the mail, I was like, we've gotta change some things because I didn't realize how dependent I was on this of just like the it felt like tension and anxiety at first without it. Eventually it moved into calm, but then as soon as I got it back, I could kind of feel like the ooh, like the dopamine hit is gonna come back. And so for a while I didn't have any games on my phone because I noticed sometimes I'll just use those when I wanna just decompress, but like maybe I go a little too far with it. But I definitely feel like it's learning. I look at myself seasonally, like my feelings, my capacity, my output. I look at that like seasonally. I know how I am in winter. I know how I am in spring. It shifts a little bit. And so, kind of starting to have these kind of like internal conversations about like, hey, I know it's about to be a busy season. Games on my phone really aren't helpful right now. But if it's a season where I'm doing a lot of like thinking, contemplating, revising, like that type of thing, Sometimes I just need a place where my brain can kind of go like, find these little things in a map or whatever. Cool. It really is about, for me, renegotiating my relationship to my phone. I have to give myself the space to actually acknowledge what I'm feeling. If I'm feeling like I'm really clinging on to this thing and I really need this to escape reality, or I really need to, I'm hyper fixating on things, that's when I'm like, oh, because I can feel like that tension and that need. It kind of feels like hyper fixation, like the tunnel vision a little bit. And I'm not really being present. And that really feels like being numb. When I get to
Mhm.
that space, that's when I'm like, well, we got to change something. We got to move something around.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of, and that is what I mean, my brother was a drug addict, so I say this with, that compassion too,
Mm,
but I understand that numbing. That's what drugs did for him. Some people do that through, unhealthy, and I don't mean in a judgment of like the types of food, but just disordered
yeah.
eating habits.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some people do it through disordered exercise habits, all sorts
Mm-hmm.
of things, right? That can show up in a lot of ways. And certainly our relationship with tech can be that sort of numbing agent.
Mm-hmm.
And often I think when we're in that place, it can be hard to admit that we're trying to avoid something. So I'm wondering, like, after that 4-day experience, maybe you wouldn't recommend everybody do a 4-day withdrawal right away. But is it something you talk to people about, like maybe putting your phone away for a day and just see what comes up for you? Is that something that can help people start to see this disordered relationship and what might need to change?
I think so. Even if it's just kind of like, hey, Sunday afternoon, just do not disturb, or like Saturday morning, if you're doing like events with your kids, or maybe you want to do a walk or something, like there is something around kind of like cutting that tether a little bit. Um, because I get, again, like you said, we can't go back to 1994. Right? But we can choose how we want to move forward with the breakneck speed of so much technology being developed. We can choose like where we want to slow down or where we want to create space for ourselves to not be so on and online. And I think that's what's most fascinating to me right now is this kind of like reminding people that like, hey, you have permission to be like, hey, I'm going to log off for a little bit.
It can be hard to give ourselves that permission slip, though, when we
Yeah.
feel like everyone is on. And again, that like, did you see this? How do you not know that? Why aren't you didn't answer my
Mhm.
text in 2 minutes, whatever.
Mhm.
You can start to feel that pressure build up. And so giving yourself that permission can be hard. I think you have some tactics that you use. And a couple of them you mentioned, but I'm going to throw out another one and then we'll go to some of the others that you mentioned. But one, I know you're one of many people I know that when I send them an email, I'm going to get a bounce back right away explaining that you take time to answer your email. You're not the only person who does that. So that's fine, right? I have,
Sorry.
whenever I'll send out an email to a list of people that, about something I'm organizing or something, and immediately I'll get back like 7 emails, 8 emails. And those are all the people who have their autoresponder set up to say, I take a while to answer emails. And
Yeah.
I respect and love that because it's
Yeah.
putting in a boundary, it's putting a clear limit. So that's one boundary I know you put in place around tech, just some of that expectation setting.
Yeah.
Are there other things that you do with tech that are boundary setting either for yourself or for others?
Okay, so I'm gonna be completely honest here. Yeah, I don't even know if it's so much as boundary setting or so as like maybe it is, but I know that what will end up happening, and sometimes it's not intentional, is I'll just like leave my phone by my desk and go futz around downstairs for 4 hours and be like, oh crap, I need to go get my phone. And that is probably more so just like, I don't know, object permanence, neglect, ADHD, something is in there with that, right? I want to be better about that, but I oftentimes feel like my brain is sometimes kind of like, okay, I gotta go away. I gotta go away for a little bit. This is a lot. The other thing that I would suggest is come get back into like activities. These do not need to be commitments of more than 20 minutes. I want to preface with that. But get back into activities that like require your hands.
Yes, that's why I took up embroidery this year, and I've been talking about that because in the evenings, when my husband and I sit down to watch TV together, which
Mhm.
TV is technology, but for me, it feels a little different because it's an entire story. I don't watch shorts. I'm watching a
Mhm.
30 to, an hour long, or sometimes a movie, 2 hours of a story that plays out, right? I have to follow along. But I notice my husband, I love you if you're listening, Terry, but he'll sit there and he scrolls his phone. But I used to sometimes too. I would have to
Yeah.
resist that urge to not be like, oh, this is a slower part of the story. So I'm going to scroll for a little bit, or commercial
Mhm.
break, I'll scroll, because it's like we have to constantly have something stimulating us. So now I will watch and I embroider. So at least I've
That's that.
removed the scrolling part. I'm
Yeah.
still watching the show, but I also feel like it's balance, y'all.
Yeah.
But I agree
It's
big time. Handcrafts help.
handcrafts help, and then I guess, like, let's call them, like, monotasks. So, for instance, if I go to swim, I can't take my phone into the pool with me, right? So that kind of ends up being a thing where, like, I'm going to like, a water aerobics class, and then I'm gonna go swim after, and then, like, I shower after. So there's, like, this time where I'm just, like, doing this one thing, and my brain is focused on this one thing to do. Or like when you go to the movies, right? Like you're not on your phone because like it's dark in there. You don't want to look at it. You don't want to be rude to anybody
Except
else.
I think we've seen some of those people who are rude and sit there on their phone. You're like, come on, you can't. But yes, I agree.
We have
Manners should dictate that we turn our phones off during the movie.
Yeah, I mean, Alamo Drafthouse will have a couple commercials that'd be like, "Don't be the person who has the phone on." But there's something about that where like I'm focusing. It's a sensory experience as well because the lights get dimmed down and like you have this big screen in front of you, so like you're focusing on this one thing, and I think it's interesting to play with like where can we create more kind of like these like monotasks where it's like and now I am watching TV. I'm gonna leave my phone in the kitchen for a little bit. I've heard some really cool things about this show. I wanna watch this. Let's see, give myself like 45 minutes, an hour to watch an episode and see how I feel.
And I don't have to live react to it. The world isn't just waiting to hear my live reactions to every second of it.
Yeah, like you can kind of like sit with stuff like and focus on like responding maybe in a group chat or maybe like with friends instead of like reacting. So, yeah, I think there's definitely space for kind of creating like these like little monotasks where you're focused on one thing and or doing something to with your hands. So that can be uh, a lot of needlepoint crafts are helpful for this. Knitting, maybe you like to draw or doodle or sketch. Painting, I have a lot of friends who are like into watercolor and painting right now. Maybe you are using like your tablet or something like in Procreate to create something, but like where can you I just got a book from the library because nothing requires your attention like reading a book, like
Right.
nothing. And so I have to use my hands to turn the pages for stuff. So I think it's just if you can find those like little spaces, maybe that's a hobby, a craft, what have you, but like to do something and just like singularly focus on it, I think that will help kind of give yourself a little bit. Maybe you can't do a whole weekend or a whole day or whatever, but I'll give you like a little bit of a break.
Well, and notice what comes up.
Mhm.
The tension that can sometimes arise, because I'll be doing my embroidery and I will sometimes feel that feeling of like, "Oh, I gotta check my phone. I gotta check my phone." And it's like just taking that breath to ask myself, what's driving that? What is it that's
Mhm.
giving me that feeling? What happens if I don't? How much longer could I sit with this discomfort of this feeling of needing to do something, instead of just immediately giving into that, like that urge, that feeling that you just can't deny? And I think those practices are really helpful. And the other thing I've noticed is like that's scrolling my phone very rarely or
Mhm.
ever have I sat on my phone doom scrolling and or joy scrolling, if that were a thing, that at the end of it I'm like, man, that was such a great use of those 2 hours of my life, or I just really feel great now, or oh, that was
Mhm.
so much, that brought me joy. I mean, that just, it's kind of like that deathbed moment where nobody says, I wish I'd scroll my phone more on their deathbed, right? But doing creative projects with my hands, like, I don't know that they're gonna be deathbed moments, but certainly at the end of it, I feel pride. I created
Mhm.
this thing. I feel creative. I feel like I expressed something. I got something out. I feel productive in that I did something. Like it's a very different feeling. So when we talk about joy, I think we have to analyze what activities actually bring us joy. And again, we can't escape tech, but can we reduce it so we can bring back moments of real joy?
Yeah.
Because cat videos might be cute, but I don't know that they're bringing most of us real, like sustaining joy.
Mm-mm. I'll say this, a question that I have been asking myself a lot lately, and I find very helpful when I'm scrolling and I don't necessarily want to be scrolling, but I feel like I can't stop scrolling. What is this giving me? What am I getting out of this? And often I won't really have an answer because I can't really remember the thing 5 videos ago. You know what I mean? And I very rarely I'll have, like, little folders set up on, like, Instagram, like, "Oh, these are great cooking ideas," or "These are great" what how many times do I actually go back to it?
Lord, you're calling me out. I never go back to them. I save them like, I'm definitely gonna do this recipe, and I don't.
I never
Rarely.
go back to them, like, but I have them, and, like, I feel for a while, I think one of the things probably, like, mid-aughts was, you go to a concert or a live event or whatever, and you're just, like, recording the whole time, you're not experiencing it.
Well, I think it still happens.
I know it still happens, but it's so funny because, like, how often do you go back and look at that video? There's a night, but there's like a nice balance. And maybe that's what this whole conversation is about. Is there's a nice balance between like, if you're at a live event and you really wanted to see this artist or you've never heard this sound before, like recording it and kind of looking at these as tools to document your life or looking at that as these as tools to like better understand what other people are experiencing in their life. But when you're getting to a place where you feel overwhelmed, tense, you're losing track of time is a big one. Where like, oh, it's been an hour and a half. Oh, I spent 2 hours on Instagram not doing anything. It's that question of like, what did I get out of this?
Yeah.
And sometimes, yeah, sometimes you just want to like doom scroll. That's fine. But when you're starting to notice that it's becoming a pattern, that might be when you're like, okay, so what are some things I can implement to kind of change this behavior that I don't like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you look up, if you feel worse than you did before you started, that's a really good sign. Because I will get in a flow state with a
Hmm.
creative project, something
Yeah.
that's really lighting me up. And sometimes that creative project involves technology, designing something in Canva that I'm super excited about. And I might look up later and be like, oh my God, that took an hour, but I felt like 5 minutes. But I feel pumped. I feel amped. I'm excited. I love what I
Yeah.
did. I rarely feel that after watching, TikTok videos for an hour. I don't
Yeah.
usually feel good. It's not a flow state. It's like you said, it's like a numb state. And that's a very
Hmm.
different experience. You talk sometimes about social media office hours. What does that
Hmm.
mean to you? And how does that play into all this?
I think it came out of I used to be a wedding planner. And the way that people would treat me as if I was a first responder when I'm like, your wedding isn't until like in 18 months. Why are you calling me? And I didn't know how to, like, set expectations when I first started, and so the concept of office hours for me, whether that's for social media, client calls, like, whatever, was a way to help me as a recovering people pleaser set expectations with clients, but also just help manage my capacity. Like, I don't if I'm constantly reacting, I get to the end of the day and I feel like I lost time. I don't really feel centered or tethered, and it leads me to feel like really agitated and really exhausted really fast. And so I think it's a concept that helps. It's like a mutually beneficial concept that helps if you're somebody who struggles with managing your capacity, maybe you overpromise things, people pleaser, like that type of space. It helps you manage your capacity and it also helps set expectations for whether that's people who follow you online or clients or friends and family. Like it's a concept, you don't have to call it office hours, but it's a concept you can apply to a bunch of different things. It helps set those expectations and manage your capacity. But that's where it really came from was because I was like, I hate being on. I cannot explain to you, Becky, how much I hate being on the phone. If I don't have like headphones when I'm listening, I don't know if it's like a thing, but like just putting the phone to my ear, I'm like, I just hate it.
Everyone in my life knows you better text me and not call me.
For real, like, I just it was the worst, and I would constantly be getting calls from clients about, like, "What about this? I just saw this on Pinterest, blah, blah, blah," but I wasn't setting those expectations, or those boundaries. And I didn't know that I could. And so once I finally figured out, like, oh no, like I can tell people, like, oh, I don't do that. Or if you want to contact me, here's how. That's when things kind of started to shift. So it started as a way to manage my capacity, set those expectations, but it really kind of was like a permission slip that I was like,
Yeah. It's the same as that email responder that you have, right? It's that
yeah.
boundaries and expectation setting. But then there's that we do internally as well. So that's that
Hmm.
external with others and around our availability, accessibility with social
Hmm.
media or all forms of tech. But then there's the internal about how we set some boundaries for ourselves. And one thing you mentioned before this was the lookup method for scrolling. We were talking about scrolling. What does that mean?
It's so simple. Okay, so when you're on your phone and you're like scrolling, you're doing this, right?
Your
And so
thumb?
your eye is always going down here and you're just like scrolling, you're looking for the next thing. And that's how they design the apps, right?
Absolutely.
Like so you see like the little top piece of an Instagram post and you're like, "Oh, what's that?" So you're always scrolling up. Just draw your eyes to the top of your phone and even better, look up or over your phone for like 5 seconds. Take your thumb off of your phone, breathe, and then ask yourself, "Do I want to continue?" And maybe this is a great place to ask yourself the question of like, "What am I getting out of this? I spent an hour on this. Don't I want to eat? Don't I want to go outside and be in the sunshine for like 2 seconds? Like,
Yeah.
what did I get out of this?" And I don't say this because I love content creators. I love content creation. I actually really do love social media. I think it can be such a cool space. Like we met because low key because of the internet.
Exactly, we both are content creators. We're right now creating content that we're putting out there.
Exactly. Like I don't think that they are bad things. I think that like just our behaviors around these we haven't had the time to develop healthier behaviors at the same speed as the technology has been like developed and put out to us.
Well, and I always like to, me, I'm going to bring up systems because the system, it's been systematically created in a way that robs us of our attention. It's all by
Yeah.
design, purposeful and intentional. If you read anything about the attention economy, and that's some of the stuff we'll talk about in this podcast, is it's very much by design. It is all these tools and technology are designed to suck our attention and to keep our attention. They don't want us to look up. They don't want to
Mhm.
ask. They don't want us to ask, am I getting anything out of this? So when we feel like, oh, I've developed this problem, yes, but also this problem was done to you, right? Like
Yeah.
this is somebody is there's a puppet master pulling strings, making this happen. So of course you're gonna respond that way without intentionality. And I think so much of what you've talked about here, Jordan, is just intentionality. Right. It's
Mhm.
bringing intention to every practice, finding that balance, moderation in all things, and am I really being intentional and thoughtful about it? Or am I just sort of habitually showing up or performing in a certain way? So that's, I
Yeah.
think, all that we're asking. So I want to just finish with you sharing your like expertise around rest and joy related to tech or not, but just what do you want people to leave with as they think about rest and joy? And then also, what's one thing you'd like them to do this week?
That's such a great question. The way that I define rest, is rest is the energy, intention, attention, and time that you return to yourself. It's a act of reclamation. And so when you're online, when you're scrolling, like how can you reclaim your energy, attention, and time? Maybe that looks like, hey, I want to go sit down and do some embroidery while we watch Stranger Things. I don't know. Maybe that looks like, hey, let me just spend 5 minutes outside, just like feeling the sun on my face and like taking a little bit of a break. I would want to leave people with that definition. I would also want to leave people with the permission slip that like you are allowed to return energy, attention, and time to yourself. You're allowed to reclaim that for yourself, and you're allowed to discover the ways that that can be joyful. Rest doesn't just have to be this like, boring, uncomfortable thing that you arrive at. It can be fun, it can be joyful, it can be things that are very generative and uplifting to you. And if I were to ask you to try one thing this weekend, it's really look up. Just try it and see what happens. See what happens for yourself and how you feel. If you're scrolling and you feel like I actually don't really want to be scrolling, but I can't stop, just like take a breath, eyes up over your phone, thumb off of the screen. Do I want to keep going? What am I getting out of this? What would I actually like to be doing right now? That type of thing. And then see where you go from there.
Thank you, Jordan, for that message and for sharing. I really appreciate it. And where can people go learn about you?
You can find me online, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube at the Jordan Maney and then jordanmaney.com. But yeah, just come holler at me. Come send me a little message and say hi. I always like saying hi back to people. So,
She may take a little while to respond, but it doesn't
but
mean
I'll
she
get
won't.
there.
Exactly. And all of that will be in the show notes or description wherever you're getting this content. So thank you, everyone. Find some peace today. Thanks for listening to Analogish. This episode is over, but the world is still out there. Go find it.